Good morning, everybody. Okay, so as some of you know, today we are celebrating Imbolc. So I prepared a little reflection for all of you. The Earth-centered holiday of Imbolc marks the halfway point between the winter solstice, or Yule, and the spring equinox, or Ostara, on the pagan Wiccan wheel of the year. It has been adapted over the centuries and is sometimes known as Oimilk, or Candlemas, depending on your culture or religion. The celebration of Imbolc originates from the Celts and dates back to a pre-Christian era in the British Isles. The earliest mentions of Imbolc in Irish literature were found in the 10th century. Poetry from that time relates the holiday to use milk with the implication of purification. Thank you, History Channel. From an agricultural perspective, it's when we start to prepare for the coming of spring. We bury our little pods of promise and potential in the ground and wait for them to take root. You start to see buds on trees and the stirring of early spring flowers like daffodils, crocus, and hyacinth. It's also a time for a new life of a more mammalian nature. According to our friend, the History Channel, it has been speculated that this ritual stems from the breeding cycle of sheep and the beginning of lactation, which makes sense because the word Imbolc means in the belly of the mother. The term oimilk means use milk. It even sounds like the English word for milk. The Boston Public Library notes that around this time of year, many herd animals give birth to their first offspring of the year or are heavily pregnant. As a result, they are producing milk. This creation of life's milk is part of the symbolic hope for spring. This is also where a lot of our other springtime icons start. Eggs, rabbits, lambs, all fertility symbols that get their start right here. While some people focus their celebrations on the goddess Brigid, others focus more on the shift of seasons, moving from the rest and hibernation of deep winter into the blossoming life force of spring. Much like how hibernating creatures spend the early spring cleaning out their dens and burrows from the long winter, we can work on cleaning out our own dark places. Sometimes this takes place in the physical world. Ever heard of spring cleaning? After a long, hard winter of being cold, probably wet, and stuck inside, it's nice to finally get outside and open the windows and air out the place a bit. This can also take place spiritually as we release those things which no longer serve us. It's a great time to make way for the new things that'll be coming your way, both physically and spiritually. Erin from the Seasonal Soul blog reminds us that this is the time to clear out the dirty old clutter and the things that have died within us during the winter in order to prepare for the exciting new growth to come. This is a time of leaving what is safe and comfortable in order to grow more fully into yourself. As our days grow longer and life shakes off the mantle of hibernation, it's a reminder that we too need to shed our winter coat and prepare for the abundance that spring brings. Are you ready to bloom, my little flowers?
So who is Brigid, and why does Imbolc have both a goddess and a saint? It's common in human cultures to associate a person or a personage with a holiday, like Santa Claus is part of Christmas and Uncle Sam is the 4th of July. When we draw a picture of the new year, that person looks like a baby, right? And the old year is an old person, of course, like me. If spring were a person, perhaps they would be all green and flowery. Winter would look all white and sparkly, perhaps. Fall would be a bright person dressed in many colors. So what sort of person, perhaps what sort of god, would Imbolc be? Legend tells us that the sacred holiday of Imbolc, the point in early February, halfway between the longest night on the winter solstice, Yule, and the balancing point of the vernal equinox, between the past of the ending year and the beginning of the growing light, is interwoven with the presence of Brigid, an ancient goddess of Ireland, divine personification of new beginnings, stirring deep within the earth. The Celtic goddess Brigid is celebrated at the beginning of February as the goddess of learning and of healing, of the arts of blacksmith and craft, as a goddess of fertility as winter gives way to spring, and so festivals in honor of the goddess at the sacred time of Imbolc are celebrated to encourage the return of springtime to the frozen land. As Stevie said earlier, Imbolc, also known as Olmelk, means in the belly, referring to fertility, the time awaiting a birth, new beginnings in the annual cycle of plowing, planting, growth, and harvest. The symbols for Imbolc and the powers of the goddess Brigid are fire and water, the stirring of new life, and the milk that animals provide to nourish their young. As one source tells us, quote, Brigid is a goddess full of contradiction, a goddess of healing, fertility, and motherhood, but also of passion and fire, a goddess of serenity and water as well. Another website informs us that Imbolc is a time of change, when the days are becoming longer and the sun is stronger. Ancient Celtic celebrations included lighting fires to warm the frozen land, hanging a four-cornered Brigid's cross above doorways to bless and protect the home, and using various means to predict the weather during this transitional season. Similar to our practice of watching for Punxsutawney Phil on Groundhog's Day, ancient Celts would listen for a lark to sing on Imbolc. If they heard the bird, it meant that the god had returned to the goddess and spring would be early. For many centuries, Brigid has also been revered as a saint in Ireland, as the persona of the goddess Brigid was adopted by the Christian Church in the Middle Ages and was known as Saint Brigid of Kildare. Her feast day is also February 1st, the same day celebrated as the goddess Brigid, and the long list of her special blessings includes caring for the country of Ireland and its province of Leinster, along with, quote, babies, blacksmiths, boatmen, brewers, cattle, chicken farmers, children in trouble, dairymaids, fugitives, infants, midwives, nuns, poets, the poor, poultry farmers, printing presses, sailors, scholars, and travelers. If we left you out, I imagine she would extend her blessings to you as well. Saint Brigid is still celebrated and her blessings invoked in Ireland and around the world to this day, although the Catholic Church revoked her saintly status in 1969. They revoked sainthood from St. Patrick and St. Christopher as well, so Brigid was not alone in being demoted, but she's still widely loved and respected, especially in Ireland. So I wish for us all that spirits of Brigid the goddess and Brigid the saint may bless and inspire us to protect and nourish us as we prepare for the return of new life to the world, as we await the promise of spring.
Hello. Traditionally speaking, Imbolc was the time of year when the worst of winter was over and the promise of spring was coming. It is the liminal space between the shrinking dark and the growing light. You know spring is coming because the days are getting longer. We miraculously have light after 5 p.m. 50 degrees feels downright balmy. But it's not quite time to put away our winter jackets yet. With that idea, seeds hold this promise of the future without hats and gloves, when hands and lips aren't dry and chapped from the cold temperature. Seeds hold an entire future in them. This is the season of promise and growth, of planting and waiting. Part of the Imbolc symbolism is the pregnant earth, or goddess, getting ready to birth new life. It hasn't happened yet, but it's sitting in the darkness, preparing for the next phase. It is the time to plant seeds of possibility. There is the feeling of getting into position and being ready to spring, literally and figuratively, into action on the first nice day. In a modern world where activity seems to be constant and the seasonality related to rest and active cycles of life have been lost, it is important to take the time to pause and think about what seeds you are planting and what you hope to cultivate in the coming months. Seeds themselves can range in size from the microscopic ones of the orchid family to the largest one, the double coconut. Encased in these is the pledge of a new life and the reminder that life, growth, or change must start somewhere. During this time of year, seeds that have been planted start to germinate, and with these seeds, we too can shed the protective hibernation of winter and begin to dream about the new life waiting for us to build. Seeds have a variety of strategies to sprout and become their plants, from the tiniest duckweed to the largest sequoia tree and everything in between. We too can use a variety of tricks, tools, and methods to grow into our own version of a redwood. Seed plants, scientifically known as spermatophytes, first showed up on Earth approximately 350 to 400 million years ago and haven't looked back. They were different than the spores that are produced by ferns and mosses because they have a coating which protects them and allows them to lay dormant until the conditions are just right to allow the seed to grow. This could be years of waiting. But in that seed, they also contain the nutrients for the embryo, as well as the first leaf or leaves, and amazingly, the beginnings of a root, all in one neat, tidy package. A seed contains everything needed to grow a new plant. And at this time of Imbolc, we are reminded that we also contain everything we need to grow. But the seed also reminds us that growth is not instantaneous. A lot of times, we don't see the first steps of germination. The first steps of germination happen underground and in the dark, while the world is still preparing for full spring. And that is what we are doing during this time of year. The final grip of winter hasn't quite fallen away, but we can begin doing the underground work, the dreaming and scheming, that we can be prepared to bloom in the spring and summer when Earth is finally ready for us in all our glory. Seeds take the first step by breaking out of their seed coating and stretching the root and the beginning of their leaves. Through some biochemical magic, they know which one is which and how they need to grow, but they both start underground, in the dark, stretching towards their future. You, like a seed, may need to grow some new roots and feel grounded, or you might need to start unfurling some leaves and stretch into the possibility of what could be. Now is the time to do some discernment. Do you need to be grounded, or do you need to touch the sky? For this Imbolc, I encourage you to take some of the seeds that we have, plant them at home in a pot, and watch them grow. Sometimes my family will even write our intentions or a recommitment to our New Year's resolutions, because those are usually petering out about now, on a piece of paper, and plant them with the seeds so we can use the growing plant as a reminder of what we hope to accomplish now that the dark is waning and the sun is returning. As you watch these seeds grow, think about whether you need roots or leaves. And remember, they both take.
Last weekend, I noticed that there were crocus and snowdrops blooming out in the yards around the church. And then the other day, I noticed that the daffodils in front of my apartment have their sprouts up about 6 inches. Not buds yet, just the sprouts. You know, I don't know, I haven't looked to see how any of them made it through Friday night, which was pretty cold, but yeah. Imbolc is a time to prepare for the future. It's a time to plant seeds in the darkness of the soil, the time patiently to wait for the sprouts to break the surface and emerge into the bright air. Our Imbolc celebrations may incorporate ancient traditions, such as lighting candles to illuminate the path into new beginnings, making crafts such as a woven Brigade's cross to place above your door, baking bread and gratitude for all that nourishes our lives, along with the suggestion, and Stevie said this, that this is a good time to start your spring cleaning to prepare for the new season. So when the energy surge of newness hits you, you can start cleaning for the future. And of course, as the weather seesaws wildly between warm days and frigid nights, we offer our gratitude to the humble groundhog, whose weather predictions have proven remarkably accurate over time, and who this year has informed us that we should buckle in for 6 more weeks of winter, although as some has commented, 6 more weeks? We haven't really had much winter yet. I shouldn't say that, right? Wise guidance suggests Imbolc is also a good time to pause and look inward and think about what it is you would like to accomplish in the season ahead. Imbolc is a time to take what you've learned and apply it to new endeavors as the wheel of the year turns. For me, Imbolc is a season of deep spirituality, when I can sink into the welcoming dark and silence within my spirit, connecting with the spiritual seeds of new growth in my life. This is a time to nourish the tiny roots that stretch into that dark silence to find new sources of inspiration, and the tender shoots that reach for the light of discovery and new directions. With the nights still long and mornings dawning slowly and evenings still coming early, Imbolc is a season to pause, to notice our breath, to sink deep into reflection, meditation, or prayer, a time to connect with our deepest desires as we open ourselves to the possibilities in a new season of fertile growth. And so I wish for us each and all the blessings of deep spirituality, the thoughtful celebrations of the season as the earth turns toward the growing light and our lives open like the spring flowers to accept the promise of a dawning future. So may it be. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit to join in our closing hymn, Lady of the Season's Laughter. It is in your order of service. It's number 351 if you prefer to use the hymnal. Lady of